This pain isn't betrayal, it's redirection. There's a moment when silence screams louder than words, when someone walks away and you're left holding the weight of what they never said, and in that void, your mind spins 1,000 stories. Was I not enough? Did I do something wrong? Why wasn't I worth fighting for? But what if I told you this pain isn't proof of your failure? It's the fire forging your future. While you're stuck mourning what was, life is trying to push you toward what could be. Most people stay trapped in the betrayal and miss the redirection. But if you're listening right now, you're not like most people. You're here for truth, for healing, for power. When it all fell apart, it doesn't always start with a scream. Sometimes it's silence that breaks you. One minute, you're standing in a world that made sense, and the next, you're staring at the pieces of a life you thought would never shatter. The text that never came, the door that closed without warning, the person who once promised they'd always be there, gone, without explanation. You keep replaying the last conversation, hunting for clues. You look in the mirror and barely recognize yourself, not because of what's changed on the outside, but because something inside you has collapsed. And it's not just sadness, it's disorientation, a soul-level confusion. Because how do you grieve someone who's still alive, just no longer choosing you? Your brain becomes a war zone, logic fighting emotion, memory battling reality. You remember the way they used to smile at you, laugh with you, lean on you. You remember the version of you that felt seen, needed, wanted. Now you're invisible in a story you helped build. The worst part? You still love them, and that love has nowhere to go. It echoes inside you like an unanswered prayer, and every time you try to suppress it, it resurfaces, raw, aching, unresolved. This is where most people get stuck. They call it heartbreak, but it's something deeper. It's identity death. Because when someone walks away, they don't just leave your life, they leave your sense of worth shaken. They leave your mind chasing closure that may never come. And slowly, your inner dialogue turns cruel. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? Was everything we shared just a lie? You weren't just betrayed, you were abandoned by your reality. And in that moment, nothing makes sense. Your body moves, but your spirit is paralyzed. You scroll through your day pretending to be okay, smiling for others while bleeding inside. You isolate yourself, not because you want to be alone, but because you can't bear to hear the words, "You'll be fine," because you're not fine. You're fractured, and pretending only deepens the wound. But here's what no one tells you, and what I need you to hear. This moment is not the end. It's the unraveling before the rebirth. Because sometimes things have to fall apart, so you can finally stop holding on to what was never meant to stay. You're not broken, you're breaking open. And while it feels like betrayal, what if it's actually the universe's most brutal form of redirection? The question that haunts you. You lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, asking the same question over and over again. Why? Why did they walk away? Why didn't they fight for me? Why did they promise forever, then vanish like it meant nothing? It's a loop that never ends, like a song you never wanted stuck in your head, playing louder in the silence. You scroll through old messages, stare at photos that once meant joy, and now feel like betrayal. You go over every word every moment, trying to decode something that never made sense. You convince yourself that if you can just understand why, the pain might stop. That maybe, just maybe, the right answer will make it hurt less. But it doesn't. Because you're not just searching for answers, you're searching for worth. You're not really asking, why did they leave? You're asking, was I not enough to stay? That's the real question, and it cuts deeper than anything they ever said, because now it's you wounding yourself. This is the identity collapse. When someone we loved, someone we trusted, suddenly stops choosing us, it doesn't feel like they left. It feels like who we are was rejected, and that pain becomes addictive. You replay it not because you enjoy suffering, but because part of you is hoping the next time you go over it, it'll make sense, that you'll find the missing piece. But the human brain isn't built for unanswered wounds, so it fills the silence with stories. They found someone better. I must be too much, or not enough. If I had just done more, they'd still be here. You personalize pain that was never yours to carry. You begin to believe the betrayal defines you. But here's what you must understand, and this truth is non-negotiable. Their actions are a reflection of them, not your value. Read that again. What they did says something about their courage, their clarity, their readiness to love deeply. It does not rewrite your worth. And maybe, just maybe, this pain wasn't punishment. This wasn't the universe betraying you. It was protecting you. Because what if the real heartbreak wouldn't have been them leaving, but them staying, and you never realizing how much more you deserved? So here's the shift. Instead of asking, why did they do this to me? Start asking, what is this pain redirecting me toward? That's where the breakthrough begins. The invisible war within you. Wake up, smile at the world, and quietly bleed inside. You get dressed, go to work, post a photo, nod when someone asks, you doing okay, and you lie. Not because you want to, but because it feels easier than trying to explain a war no one else can see. This is the battlefield most people never talk about. Not the one with blood and scars on the surface, but the one behind your eyes, where your thoughts don't rest, where your heart keeps screaming in a world that demands your silence. You've become a master of disguise. You laugh in the group chat. You show up to family dinners. You even offer advice to others while secretly drowning in your own unanswered grief. And the world keeps applauding your strength, never realizing that your silence isn't strength, it's exhaustion. There's a pressure, unspoken but always present, that you should be over it by now. That heartbreak has a deadline. That pain has an expiration date. So you stop bringing it up. You stop reaching out. You start apologizing for still feeling something that others have already forgotten. This is the trap. You begin to feel ashamed of your own heart. You start thinking, maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I am broken. Maybe I'm the problem. But hear this clearly. You are not weak for feeling deeply. You are human, and emotional pain, the kind that tears through your soul, isn't something you just get over. It's something you move through, like walking through a storm barefoot, like dragging yourself through fire with no map, no guide, no certainty that there's peace on the other side. But there is. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Most people you admire are fighting silent wars too. The strong ones, the successful ones, the ones who seem like they have it all together. They've just learned to keep marching, even when their armor is shattered. They've learned that pretending doesn't heal you, but awareness does. So today, give yourself permission to take off the mask. You don't have to perform for anyone. You don't have to rush your healing to make others comfortable. You're allowed to feel everything fully, even when the world tells you to numb it. Because the moment you stop running from your truth is the moment you take your power back, and that's when the war starts to shift. Not by hiding the pain, but by owning it. You are not alone in this war. You're just learning how to win it from the inside out. The mirror of pain doesn't just hurt, it exposes. It holds up a mirror and forces you to look at the version of yourself you've been avoiding. Not the curated one, not the one others applaud, but the raw, unfiltered version. The one asking, am I even enough? When someone walks away, betrays you, rejects you, or breaks you, you don't just feel their absence. You start questioning your worth. You start rewriting your identity around their decision, as if their departure was a statement about your value, as if their silence confirmed your deepest fear. Maybe I'm not lovable after all. That's the illusion, that someone else's inability to stay means you weren't worth staying for, that their betrayal means you were too much, or not enough, that their failure to see you clearly must mean you were invisible. But here's the truth, and I want you to tattoo this on your soul. Their actions are not your reflection. Their choices are not your identity. Pain is loud, and when you're hurting, it's easy to believe that what they did is who you are. But pain isn't a measure of your value. It's a mirror, revealing how much of your identity was placed in their hands. And that's where the breakthrough begins. Because when you realize the reflection in the mirror was shaped by your wounds, not your truth, you can shatter it. You can reclaim the parts of you that you gave away, piece by piece, in hopes they'd love you more. You can stop asking broken people to define your wholeness. This pain is a mirror showing you where you've been living, small, shrinking yourself for approval. It's revealing the version of you that relied on external validation to feel seen. And while that's heartbreaking, it's also liberating. Because now you get to choose who you are, without their fingerprints smudging the glass. You get to stop being the person who begs for clarity from someone who gave you confusion. You get to stop searching for meaning in someone else's abandonment. You get to stop holding your identity hostage to someone else's decisions. Let the pain reflect what's been hidden. Let it show you the places you've abandoned yourself. And then, let it redirect you. Because this mirror, It's not here to shame you. It's here to awaken you. The person looking back at you is not broken. They're just learning how to remember who they were before the world told them otherwise. And that's where healing starts. The myth of closure. Let's talk about something that keeps too many people stuck in their pain. Closure. We convince ourselves that we can't move forward until we get it. We wait for an apology that never comes, an explanation that never arrives, a conversation that was never meant to happen. We say, I just need them to tell me why. But what we're really saying is, I need them to validate that I mattered. And that's the trap. We think closure is something they give us. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Closure is not a door someone else closes for you. It's the one you lock, from the inside. Because when you put your healing in the hands of someone who broke you, you're still handing them the pen, and asking them to finish your story. But they were never qualified to write it in the first place. You don't need their words to heal. You don't need their apology to let go. You don't need their permission to move forward. You've been taught that closure is this clean, pretty moment. A final talk, a mutual understanding, a peaceful goodbye. But real closure, it's messy. It happens at 2 a.m. when you're crying on the floor. It happens when you choose not to check their social media. It happens when you stop rehearsing what you wish you'd said. Real closure is internal. It's not something they give you. It's something you give yourself when you decide, I'm done letting this moment define me. Waiting for them to come back and fix it is like standing in a burning house and hoping the one who lit the match will come save you. They won't, and even if they did, it wouldn't be enough. Because closure isn't about the end of a relationship. It's about the start of self-respect. It's about drawing the line in your own soul and saying, this pain may be part of my story, but it will not write my identity. And here's the most empowering truth. You don't need the last word. You just need the next step. So stop waiting for closure from the person who hurt you. Stop needing their understanding to validate your experience. You already survived what tried to break you. You already stood back up. That's closure, right there. And the moment you stop reaching out for what they'll never give, you reach inward for something far more powerful. Peace. Why closure is a lie and what you really need. Let's shatter a myth that's keeping you stuck. Closure isn't real. You keep thinking, if they just explain why, I could move on. If they just say sorry, I'd finally heal. But that's a trap. What you're calling closure is actually a craving for control. You want to rewind the pain and edit the ending. You want someone else to fix the chaos they left inside you. And deep down, you hope their words will make your heartbreak make sense. But here's the brutal truth. Most people won't give you the closure you think you need. They ghost you. They lie to themselves. They disappear into new relationships like you never existed. And you're left holding the silence, trying to build meaning from their absence. So let me say it clearly. Closure is not something they give you. It's something you give yourself. Because even if they came back with perfect words, what would change? Your heart would still ache. Your trust would still be broken. Your soul would still have to rebuild itself. And only you can do that. Closure isn't about getting answers. It's about accepting the ones you'll never get. It's not about understanding their reasons. It's about reclaiming your power from the wreckage. You see, the desire for closure keeps you chained to them. It gives them power over your peace. It delays your healing, waiting for someone else's permission. But healing was never their responsibility. It's yours. Real closure comes when you say, I may never know why they did what they did, but I know who I am now, and I'm done letting their silence be louder than my future. Let that sink in. You don't need one last conversation. You don't need to make sense of the chaos. You don't need an apology that may never come. You need to choose you, right here, right now. Choose to stop rereading the final chapter. Choose to write something new, something braver, stronger, louder. Let go of the fantasy where they suddenly see your worth, and step into the reality where you never needed them to. This is the moment you reclaim agency, not by understanding the past, but by refusing to let it own your next move. Closure is a myth, but freedom, that's real, and it starts the second you stop looking backward and start walking forward, without their explanation, without their blessing, and without their voice in your head. You don't need answers. You need peace, and peace begins with a single, unstoppable decision. I set myself free. Redirection. Life is not ending. It's beginning. You think life is falling apart, but what if it's falling into place? You weren't abandoned. You were redirected. not discarded, repositioned. You were so focused on what ended, you didn't see what's about to begin, because pain isn't just a punishment, it's a compass. It points to what's broken, what's not meant for you, what you've outgrown, and when you ignore the signs, life speaks louder, through endings, through silence, through heartbreak that feels like death, but is really birth. We're taught to fear loss, to grieve what's gone like it was everything. But what if the breakup, the rejection, the betrayal, was the universe intervening? What if it had to fall apart, because you would have stayed too small? You would have kept settling, kept shrinking to be chosen, kept dimming your truth to keep someone else comfortable. But life isn't interested in your comfort, it's interested in your calling. And sometimes, the only way it can wake you up is by ripping away what's distracting you from your true path. You didn't lose a person. You lost the illusion that they were your home. You didn't lose your worth. You lost the version of you that forgot it. And now you stand at the edge of something new, something fierce, something that has nothing to do with your past, and everything to do with your potential. This is redirection. This is your GPS recalculating. You weren't meant to stay stuck in their shadow. You were meant to shine without needing permission. And I know it hurts. Of course it hurts. Growth always hurts, especially when it's disguised as loss. But look closely. Under the pain is freedom. Under the chaos is clarity. Under the endings is your beginning. You are not broken. You are breaking free. The people who walked away weren't your foundation. They were your lesson. The life that collapsed wasn't your destiny. It was your detour. You didn't lose everything. You lost what was holding you back. Redirection doesn't feel like a gift at first. It feels like destruction. But give it time, and you'll see it for what it is. An invitation to rebuild, to remember who the hell you are, to rise in a direction that actually leads somewhere real. This isn't your ending. This is your alignment. This is your next chapter. And this time, it's your story, not theirs. You're not lost. You're being led. And the life that's waiting for you, it doesn't begin with answers. It begins with one decision. I will not let this break me. I'll let it build me, building a self that doesn't shatter again. If pain broke you last time, this time, you're going to build a self it can't touch. Let's stop pretending that strength means never hurting. True strength is building a life where pain doesn't define you anymore. And that starts here, with identity. Because if your self-worth is built on someone's love, it will collapse the moment they leave. If your happiness depends on being chosen, you will always fear being forgotten. If you don't know who you are without them, you were never truly with yourself. You don't need another apology. You don't need closure. You need a rebuild, the version of you that shattered. They were fragile, not because you were weak, but because you were taught to find value in everything except yourself. Now it's time to do it differently. This time, you're building from the inside out. You're not going to chase people anymore. You're going to choose yourself. You're not going to beg to be seen. You're going to see yourself, clearly, deeply, wholly. You create a self that doesn't shatter by anchoring to things that can't be taken away. Your standards, your boundaries, your truth, your emotional awareness. These are not walls, they're foundations. They protect your peace, not your pride. You stop reacting to life, and start responding with intention. You don't say yes to avoid rejection. You say no, because your self-respect finally has a voice. You don't stay in places that drain you, hoping they'll change. You leave because you've changed. And no, it's not easy. It's not instant. It's a process, an unlearning of every belief that told you your worth was negotiable. But piece by piece, decision by decision, you start becoming unbreakable. Not because you don't feel, but because you don't fold. Not because you don't care, but because you finally care about you too. This isn't about being emotionless. It's about being empowered. It's about knowing your triggers, managing your emotions, owning your patterns, and healing your wounds before they bleed into your relationships. It's about saying, I'm no longer the version of me that accepts crumbs and calls it love. Because from now on, your identity isn't up for negotiation. You're no longer defined by who stays or who leaves. You're defined by who you decide to become. This is the shift from neediness to wholeness, from reaction to intention. And the moment you anchor your worth in your own soul, you become the kind of person who doesn't chase love. You attract it, not because you're perfect, but because you're whole. And wholeness doesn't shatter. Your standards weren't too high. Their depth was too shallow. Let's get one thing straight. You were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong people. They told you your expectations were unrealistic, that your boundaries made you difficult, that your standards were too high. No, your standards were healthy. Their capacity was just shallow. And when someone lacks the emotional depth to meet you where you are, they'll shame you for standing where they cannot reach. So you started shrinking, started second-guessing, started labeling self-respect as selfishness. You bent your boundaries, hoping it would make you more lovable, but it only made you less whole. You tolerated the bare minimum because you were afraid of being alone. But listen carefully. You weren't rejected. You were redirected. You see, when you demand depth in a shallow world, you become the filter. You don't attract everyone, but that's the point. You attract only what aligns with your truth, and truth doesn't beg. Let's reframe this forever. You didn't lose them because you were too much. You lost them because you finally realized your worth. They left because they couldn't manipulate your clarity, because they couldn't use guilt to get compliance anymore, because you started saying no to what once broke you in silence. And that scares people who rely on your confusion to stay powerful. But here's the breakthrough. Your standards are not walls. They are mirrors. They reflect what you've healed and what you now refuse to entertain. You're not high maintenance. You're just no longer low tolerance. Because when you've been emotionally bankrupt, you stop giving discounts on your peace. This isn't about arrogance. It's about alignment. You no longer negotiate with inconsistency. You don't make excuses for emotional immaturity. You don't abandon yourself to keep others comfortable. You've grown, and growth always offends those who preferred you smaller, quieter, easier. But now you know, it's not about how many people stay, it's about who has the capacity to stay with integrity. You're not asking for perfect, you're asking for presence, for emotional honesty, for consistency, not chaos. And if someone can't give that, they're not bad, they're just not your match. The moment you stop betraying yourself to belong, you start belonging to yourself. And that is a love you'll never lose again. So hold your standards, speak your truth, walk away when it's not mutual. You're not hard to love. You're just finally loving yourself first. The rise of the new you. Can you feel it? That quiet shift inside you. The one that doesn't scream, but stands. That stillness that once felt like collapse, now pulsing with creation. You've been broken, yes, but you're no longer shattered. You're reshaped. There's a version of you emerging, one that doesn't need to prove, chase, or beg. Not because you're arrogant, but because you finally remember who the hell you are. This is the birth of self-respect, the rise of inner clarity, the return of sovereignty. You're starting to breathe deeper, not because life has gotten easier, but because your soul has gotten stronger. And maybe you can't fully see it yet, but it's already happening. The person who once silenced themselves to keep the peace, now walks away from chaos without apology. The version of you that once mistook red flags for potential, now sees through manipulation in a single conversation. The one who used to shrink in rooms just to be tolerated, now takes up space without asking permission. That's growth, that's power, that's you rising. You've stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't even offer a bandage. You've stopped confusing emotional starvation with loyalty. You've stopped betraying yourself to keep being understood, because now you understand yourself, and that changes everything. What felt like the end was a beginning. What felt like shame was just the burning off of a false self. What felt like isolation was really initiation. You're no longer obsessed with being chosen. Now you're focused on choosing yourself. Daily, deeply, fiercely. You've outgrown the version of you who couldn't say no, who settled, who tolerated, who chased people who ran. That version of you was necessary, but they're not coming with you, because this next level requires emotional integrity. It demands sacred standards. It invites wholeness, and you're rising into it all, not because you were lucky, not because someone saved you, but because you decided that your pain would no longer be your prison. You turned wounds into wisdom, tears into tenacity, rejection into rebirth. This is what rising feels like. Raw, real, unstable at times, but undeniably yours. So when doubt creeps in, and it will, remind yourself, I'm not who I was. I'm not where I was. I'm rising. Every boundary you hold now is a declaration, I know my worth. Every time you choose solitude over drama, I protect my peace. Every truth you speak that shakes the room, I stand in my power. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are becoming. This is the rise of the new you, and you are just getting started. Redirection in action, what to do now. This is the moment that separates the inspired from the transformed. Because awareness without action is just a comforting illusion. You've cried, reflected, awakened, now it's time to move. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a bold first step. Let's begin with a mental detox, because your mind has been hijacked not just by pain, but by stories you inherited, environments you never chose, and patterns you kept repeating out of survival. Today we rewrite the script. Silence the noise. Unfollow the accounts that feed comparison. Mute the voices that drain your energy. Your peace is worth the unfollow. Every single time. Reclaim your mornings. No more waking up into chaos. No more starting your day with other people's opinions. Begin each morning with you. Reflection, breathwork, journaling, intention. Audit your circle. Stop confusing longevity with loyalty. If they guilt trip you, belittle your growth, or mock your healing, they're not your tribe. They're your test. Next, let's talk about boundaries. Not as walls, but as sacred doors. You teach the world how to treat you by what you allow. So start saying no without explanation. Start walking away without guilt. Start protecting your space like your life depends on it. Because it does. This is how you shift from surviving to leading yourself. You don't need to fix anyone. You don't need to explain your healing. You just need to align with what fuels you. Ask yourself daily, does this thought, habit, or relationship reflect who I'm becoming? If the answer is no, cut it, replace it, or outgrow it. Redirection is not passive, it's a discipline. Every time you resist the urge to go back, every time you choose solitude over settling, every time you act from clarity, not fear, you are stepping into power. This is your becoming in motion. Start the book, join the gym, launch the idea, book the solo trip, apologize to yourself for the years you abandoned your own needs, then show up like you mean it. You will stumble, you will doubt, you will be tempted to shrink again. That's okay, but this time, you know, your pain was not punishment, it was preparation. You are not behind, you are not too late, you are in the exact season that will sharpen you. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. This is it, right here, right now. Become the version of you that your past self was dying to meet. You already have the awareness. Now choose the action. Because redirection only works if you walk the new road. One day, you'll thank the pain that redirected you one day. You'll sit in the peace you once begged for, and realize the pain that nearly broke you, actually built you. Not in the moment, not in the heartbreak, not in the nights where your chest felt hollow and your worth felt like it disappeared, but in the becoming. Because the version of you that rises from this isn't fragile. They are forged, tempered, weathered, wise. They don't flinch when the world turns cold, because they've learned to light their own fire. Let me tell you what that day will look like. You'll walk into a room and no longer scan for approval. You'll love someone without losing yourself. You'll sit in silence and finally feel safe there. Not because life got easier, but because you got clearer. That old version of you, the one who begged for them to come back, who questioned their worth when someone left, who tried to shrink so others could feel bigger, they're gone. You'll look back with love, but not longing. You'll remember the heartbreak, but not hurt. You'll recognize the pain, but not identify with it. Because what once felt like betrayal, you now see as redirection. It wasn't rejection. It was the universe saying, this isn't your path. I have something higher, and that something, it's already calling. You're walking toward relationships that don't require performing, opportunities that match your values, days that feel like alignment, not effort. But none of it, could have happened without the pain. Pain was the mentor, the wake-up call, the fire that burned away what you were never meant to keep. So now, you rise not with bitterness, but with wisdom, not with resentment, but with clarity, not with walls, but with standards. And you'll look back and whisper, I didn't understand it then, but I thank God I went through it. Because without it, you never would have slowed down, you never would have let go, you never would have discovered who you were beneath all the noise. This is your transformation. You are not just healing, you are returning to the real you, the powerful you, the peaceful you, the one who isn't waiting to be saved, because they finally chose themselves. You'll thank the pain, not because it was fair, not because it didn't hurt, but because it revealed the truth. You were never broken. You are becoming, and from here on out, every step is sacred, every choice is powerful, every breath is yours again. Welcome back. You are always worth the return.